Hello all, welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, write a Java program which results in IO exception. Let me answer. The full form of IO exception is input output exception. So this exception occurs in Java when you're trying to perform operations on the files, okay, which have some restrictions being set. For example, there is a file which has some restrictions set like a read-only file. But if you're trying to perform some write operations into the file, it's read-only, right? You can only read from the file, but you cannot write into the file. Such kind of operations, when you try to perform, there is a possibility of getting this IO exception. Another restriction, another example of getting this IO exception is the file doesn't exist at the given location. You represented the file using some folder location and path you have represented the file. That folder location is wrong. Whatever the folder location that doesn't exist. So it's not possible for Java to create a new file with that name. Whatever the file name you represented and the folder location you gave, right? The folder location of the file is wrong. That doesn't exist. And if you're trying to create the file at such kind of wrong folder location using create new file command, etc., in such kind of cases also we are going to get IO exception. Okay, so you're trying to create some files or folders at some wrong locations. Okay, the wrong locations are there in the Java program. In that case, Java will attempt to create a file, but ultimately it will not be able to find that folder location where the file or folder to be created. In such cases, we'll get IO exception. Third case where we are going to get, there is a possibility of IO exception is you are trying to create a file, but the disk space is full. Whatever the drive where or the whatever the location where you want to create a new file, that disk space is already fully occupied. Okay, there is no other space for anything. We cannot create a new file, etc. This space is already full. So in such kind of extreme cases also, Java unable to create the files in the disk space which is full also will give you IO exception. But I cannot practically show you all the kind of situations that will happen in Java where you will result in IO exception. But I'll give you one example, okay, where you will get this IO exception. So for that, I'll switch to the Eclipse IDE. I'll just take a very simple example where I'll give a wrong folder location and I will make the Java try to create a file at the wrong folder location intentionally. So what happens, Java will try to create a file at the wrong location. The wrong location of the folder location doesn't exist where you want to create a file, because of which Java will give you IO exception, that is input output exception. Due to some reasons, if the Java is unable to read from the files or write into the files or create the files, whatever it is, Java will give you this IO exception, guys. Okay, so I'll just create a new class just to demonstrate this. So here I'll just name some class, let's say class 18, some random name with main method I'm creating. Now I would like to represent a file. There are multiple ways of representing a file, guys. One of the ways is like file is equal new file of, directly give the location of the file. Okay, Control Shift O, file will be important. Here I have to directly say abc.txt file. You see here already abc.txt file is there, it's proper. This is one way. And another way is that here, if I remove this part, if I remove this abc.txt from here, the overloaded constructors are there where you can specify the folder location and the file that you want to create. For example, I'll just try to give a folder which doesn't exist in this particular project. You see this particular project has sample1 folder, but I'll say demo1. Do you see any demo1 folder anywhere? No, right? I'll just put a comma here and give the name of the file that I want to create, abc.txt file or xyz.txt file, whatever the file, or mno I'll give otherwise. Okay. So this particular file where I want to create at this folder location, is demo1 folder already available in this project? No. So without creating this folder, if I try to create this file under that particular folder which doesn't exist, Java is going to give you input output exception. Okay, so how to create this particular file, whether this folder location is specified or whether the folder location is not specified, we can create a file using file1.create new file and put a semicolon here. You see the Java compiler is very clever that it checks the exception, whether there is a possibility of IO exception or not. It's checking here. Hover the mouse on this, you see unhandled exception type, there is a possibility of IO exception. Why the Java compiler is suggesting that there is a possibility of IO exception? Because this location may be wrong. Please check again. Okay, there's a possibility that this location may be wrong. In such kind of cases, the Java program will not be able to create this file under this folder, which doesn't actually exist in the project. So it's better that you handle the exception, it's saying. So I am overconfident. Let's say I will ignore the exception. I'll shut the mouth of the compiler by believing that demo1 folder is already there in the project, and the mno.txt file will be created in that. I'm just thinking, and then what happens here when I say create new file? When I say create new file, this file cannot be created at demo1 because demo1 doesn't exist. If the demo1 folder exists, this file will be created under the demo1 folder. So here I'll simply write down system.out.println end of this program, end of this program. And if I run this code, observe that what will happen. This line number 12 will give you an exception known as IOException because folder location is wrong. I told you 3 reasons for getting this IOException, right? First reason is that we don't have necessary permissions to read or write into the files or create the file or whatever it is. Okay, so already the file is existing and you cannot read or write into the file. There you may get IOException possibility because if the particular file has some restrictions, okay, and reading and writing won't be possible in such kind of files, means you're trying to attempt that kind of possibilities, you'll get IOException. Another reason is where you are trying to create a file, but the disk space where you are trying to create the file is already full. How can you create a new file when the disk space is full? In that case, also extreme conditions, also very rare cases where you'll get IOException. And the general cases where a lot of people face IOException in Java programming is to create a file with this wrong folder location. Okay, you have to give a correct folder location, right? That particular folder is not available in this project, but you are still trying to create a file under that. So that will give you that exception, guys. Just run as Java application and observe that IOException will come. The system cannot find the path specified. Okay, whatever this demo1 path you specified, right, that is not available. That is the reason Java, when trying to create that file under that demo1 folder, the demo1 folder path doesn't exist, because of which this particular line has thrown IOException and the remaining portion of the code has not been executed. What if I write something like, if I really create a demo1 folder, let's say I'll just create a new, if this particular folder path exists, let's say demo1 folder, even though I am overconfident in, this ignoring the exception and all, I know that demo1 folder really exists. So in that cases, this you will not get an exception and the file will be created. mno.txt file will be, and you see end of this program came, and when I refresh this project under the demo1 folder, if I refresh this project after the program runs, under the demo1 folder, you will see the mno.txt file got already created, guys. Okay, but if you give any other folder which doesn't exist, in that case only Java will try to create this file at this unavailable folder location or folder path. Okay, in such situations, you are going to get this one of the Java program which results in IOException in Java, because the Java is trying to create a file where at a folder location which is wrong, guys. Okay, which is wrong, which is not available. In that cases, we'll get IOException. This is one of the simple program that you can demonstrate and explain in the interviews if you get this kind of question in the interviews. Okay, so Java interviews, right, they can ask you any questions. Interviewer can ask any questions about the knowledge of Java. So you see the questions, the kind of questions that you will get in Java interview will be very vast. Okay, so the list of questions will be very vast, because in which direction, at what place they will ask, we don't know. So having this kind of knowledge and being ready with this kind of solutions, right, will help you at least solve as many questions as possible, guys. Okay, if you get some new questions, let us know. So we'll try to create more programs for you. Okay, more answers for you for more questions. So anyhow, with practical demonstration, I've answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye bye.